late 60s, they got him that he was a fraud, and that the Nazis didn't consider Greeks much more white than they did any, Africans or Asians or whatever. That they were just, because you're olive skinned and you're just, you're still one of those other people. And so he just decided to kill Rockwell and did. He shot. I think it said he got up on top of the 7-Eleven and shot him when Rockwell came for coffee. Because I was at my girlfriend's house one morning when we heard the news, and she was only lived 4 or 5 blocks from the 7-Eleven.
You also talked about a situation at your church. Can you talk a little bit about religion and segregation and?
Okay. Yeah. We lived less than a block from Doolin Methodist Church, and there were 2 Methodist churches in Falls Church. There were Doolin and Crossman. Crossman was on, I guess, Washington Street, the Lee Highway, as it went into Arlington there. The way it was explained to me, Doolin had been the Southern Methodist Church, and Crossman was the Northern Methodist Church from Civil War days. One difference it made to me is, well, I was born in the South, so I'm in the right one. I'm in the Southern one. I went there from a child all the way till I graduated from high school. And what I remember about the church and my understanding of race and racism was that I remember one of our favorite songs was we'd sing red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in His sight, Jesus loves all the children of the world. And that just seemed right. And so this is the 50s. But I can remember when I went into probably junior high, 8th, 9th grade, the boys and girls that were in the church, we weren't really comfortable in the adult church services. That was kind of boring. And we didn't want to be in the childish Sunday school with the little bitty kids and just doing the regular. We'd heard the Bible, all the Bible stories over. So they said, well, we had a very good minister, Reverend Robertson. He said, we set up a special group. We'd come and just have a discussion group every Sunday. And we talk about issues of the day. We talked about segregation, integration. We talked about communism and freedom and democracy and just all that kind of stuff. And then the last 5 or 10 minutes, we'd go with all the other children and have a little thing where we'd sing some hymns and do a prayer, and that was it. During my senior year, my father had passed away, we'd moved to Vienna, but my mother and I continued to come into Doolin Church for religious services. And I can remember getting out of church one day, there's something that happened in the main sanctuary, in the main chapel. And what had apparently happened was that in the middle of the minister's sermon that day, the head of the Board of Trustees stood up. His name was Mr. Shreve. I knew his son, went to school with him. He owned the local fuel oil company in Falls Church. He got up and started condemning the minister because there'd been a meeting the week before in our church, a meeting of Methodist ministers, and some of them had been black. And he started condemning him for bringing black church people into the church. And that wouldn't have upset me so much. I mean, that was bad, but nobody spoke up for the minister. Not one man got up and told him to sit the hell down. Or just shut up and sit down there. I mean, no one stood up to him. He was a powerful man. He was very wealthy. And I mean, that's what I assume was sort of probably the reason people were afraid to stand up to him. So my neighbor suggested, when I was telling about this yesterday, he said, well, maybe the people just thought church wasn't the right place to, create a scene that he'd already done. But within a year, he forced the minister out. But after that Sunday, I never went back to the church. And that minister had married my sister. He married my father and my brother. And we were fairly close to his family. But I was just too angry. I was more angry at the cowardice of the other adult men than it was so much at this. Sure, there were racists around, but somebody should have stood up to him.
Yeah. Well, you said you after your father died, you left Falls Church to Vienna. So what was life like in Vienna? Was it segregated? Was it different from Falls Church?
No, it was basically the same thing. Father died in 59. Sometime the next year, in 1960, we moved to Vienna. We had a big house. It was just my mother and I left there. So she sold that and bought a smaller house in Vienna. But it was the same setup. The schools, were not desegregated yet in Fairfax County. In the neighborhood where we lived, on the Tyson's Corner side of Vienna, I wasn't aware of any black families living there. Now on the other side, the Oakton side, there were some homes where there were black people living. And the school was desegregated the next year, my senior year. I went back to Falls Church to school 1 year, and then spent my last 2 years at James Madison High School in Vienna. And that's a good story. At the end of our junior year, we were told, sort of maybe to prepare people that things were going to be different, that there would be black students there in the fall. And I can remember I had a mechanical drawing class with these same two yahoos, that year and then the next year as well. Roy Trent and Johnny Goodwin. And they were, these were, Fairfax was still, pretty country then. And these guys were just old country white boys. Oh no, well, we can't let this happen. We can't make us have black students in here. We're going to jump on a guy and beat him up or whatever. And they were just going, oh my God. I said, well, I just figured I was going to get an ass whipping when I went to school because I couldn't do nothing if they started acting ugly. I didn't make any threats against them. I just got myself ready this is going to be a terrible year. And when I went back to school in the fall, I worked with black people. I was in construction work. After my dad died, I got to work, and I worked with black construction workers and from Fairfax County. But just figuring, okay, going back to school is going to be a problem. And when I get back to school, everything's calm. And I waited till I'm in the mechanical drawing class again with these same two guys. And I don't think I brought it up in conversation. They were both on the football team. And as it came out pretty quickly, there was a brother and sister, the first two black students. Preston Blackwell, he was Preston. I don't remember his sister's name. I didn't really know her at all. I just knew him a little bit. We didn't have any classes together. You should try to find Preston Blackwell if he's alive and talk to him. And Johnny and Roy are saying they're Preston's bodyguards. He's the quarterback of the football team, and they're making sure nobody bothers him. And it had nothing to do with race. It's just that he was their team captain, and they weren't going to. The coach had done a good job. Coach's name was Bill Weaver. I don't know if he's still alive. Football coach, but Bill, somebody had done a good job getting these guys who could have been major pains in the butt and problem makers over on the other side.
You talked also about you worked with black workers in construction. Mm-hmm. You also told a story about the day before the Civil Rights March, mm-hmm. and how you were working in D.C. and what your supervisors. Could you give us that story, the lead up to the march and the day of the march?
That was in 1963. I had finished my freshman year at Lynchburg College. And my mother got me a summer job she had been a leader of the Republican Party in Northern Virginia. There was a Republican congressman. D.C. there was no self-government. So she'd got my brother a Christmas job. She got me a summer job using her political influence, working for city government. And that put me on a survey crew for the highway department. I went into the highway department in the D.C. government, and first couple of days I was in because I'd done mechanical drawing, in like a drafting and drawing, mechanical drawing area for the highway department. There were maybe 20 people working in there. There were 2 women and 1 black male, one male from probably Asia. So it was very. Just beginning to be desegregated, I guess. When I went to the highway with the road crew, it's all white males. And I would guess I'm going to say there were probably 16 people there, maybe more. There were 3 of us that were summer help. Everybody's white. And I'd been around D.C. enough to go, okay, well, another city's at least half black. And this is not right. The only way this could be all white is there's a scheme, to keep black people out. Over the summer, by sometime in July, the idea of the big march coming in August became part of the local news. And we began to talk about it and debate civil rights, and that was the first time I'd ever, kids didn't talk about stuff like that, at least where I was. I never really talked about civil rights with my friends, and it's the first time that I talked about civil rights with my mother, you know, and probably in college, but never, you know, with just a bunch of grown men. And so I mean, there were maybe 4 of us arguing for civil rights, and therefore racists. They were defending, you know, segregation and racism. I was a young Republican activist. I had organized a Republican club at my college. But then my mother was the leader of the Republican Party in Northern Virginia, and she was an integrationist, whatever, and completely supported Eisenhower and what he was doing with schools and desegregating the military and everything else. So that wasn't a contradiction at that point. But that was the first time I'd had a role as, you know, speaking up to other adults, because there were 3 of us that were college age there, and the others were all older men. But we began to go back and forth about the march, and well, this is going to happen. Our civil rights are just about this, and the blacks want to take over everything and get rid of, do something to the white people. And you get into those conversations almost every day. There would be about, say, 2 groups of 3 or 4 on each side, and the rest of the guys listening. As time came for the march itself, the city was just full of these crazy rumors about there was going to be a bloodbath in the city. I used the word